So I'm out under the sun, and even though there hasn't been any significant geomagnetic activity, the sun has been active. There were X-class solar flares yesterday, and for days I've been pumping out information, more so than the average person can read. And I know from experience to go with the energy and make the videos, even if people may not be watching them and liking them and learning from them now. They will exist for those in the future. So we're going to be focusing in on individual solutions. The collective solutions would be people engaged in mass meditations at the same time to affect a certain outcome. George Norrie and Art Bell of Coast to Coast have already done this, but they are not the individuals, as interesting as they are, that gave me the idea. It's Burl Payne. So I already talked about Burl Payne and what he did, the mass meditations. During solar flares, Burl and I have both come to the same unique conclusion that there seems to be a direct connection between human beings and the sun in a way that science doesn't fully understand. To the point where he thinks the magnetic or biofield around the human body is just way stronger than what we think, comparable to the sun, which sounds just insane and outrageous. But he claims that his mass meditations resulted in the sun becoming quieter, and some have said, but why would we want to quiet the sun? Why not harness the power of the sun? When you actually learn about solar cycles and grand solar maximum in the past, you can see there has been histories of wars and oppression also when the sun is more active. So there's a light side and a dark side to solar max in the mind, body, and spirit category. Same thing with the solar minimum. So I'm going to be life coaching people through the solar minimum that's coming. Okay, so the sun boosts testosterone. Today, I pumped out 20 sets of push-ups, which is more than my average. When I got back into doing push-ups, I was at 3 sets, then 4 sets, then 5. And the reps, they vary from 30 to 5. I used the bars, so I go in deeper, and then just do the pump. Like Hulk Hogan and No Holds Bars, where the woman wakes up and there's Hulk Hogan. You can find the clip on YouTube. Got a lot of creativity going on within me that I need to express, even if I have a small audience, and clip it later for the future. Lots of creativity and ideas for using Hollywood clips to go along with some of my rants. So meditation is important. I'm barefoot now and I'm outside. I talked about deep breathing, but little else. I mentioned this, so this is about balance and visualizing a shield of protection. And so by going out and exposing yourself to the sun, it is good for the field around you. I'm assuming you're human, so I'm talking to the humans. Other spirits listening, the light's good for them too, but I'm talking to the humans right now. And so I recommend pulling back from the internet for days, and coffee, and marijuana in some cases. But absolutely, marijuana helps most. So does coffee, so does the internet to get the message out. But you got to pull back and do an energetic reset. Also, people fast. It's also already setting the dopamine through pleasure-creating activities. Some actually include things like masturbation also, from things they pull back from, to pull themselves into a more zen-like, meditative, disciplined state of mind. Okay? I've never trained to black belt status in the martial arts, but within my soul, there's a sense of training in my history as a life form in this reality. Whereas in this reality, I see my formal training as being incredibly limited, but my sense of familiarity with style, tactic, strategy, different forms of expressing the body movement in ways that are not typical in the norm, that seems very familiar to me. Also, unique ways of speaking. So I'm going to be talking about lots of information that some people today aren't able to understand and may seem eccentric, but it's important. So I recommend more than one form of meditation. We talked about deep breathing and getting in the heart space. And in the past, I talked about during the full moon periods, protecting yourself. Sometimes spiritual attacks come with the moon phases from some unstable people, whereas others will have a spiritual experience. So I learned some meditations from Leon, and I think that they are good with other meditations. Okay? I've talked about this stuff before, but this is timely, and there's going to be people receptive to what I'm saying with the eclipse arriving. So I'm giving you several different options, and I don't consider any of the stuff about meditation and deep breathing to go contrary to your current Christian, Islamic, or Jewish belief systems. And if you're New Age and Gnostic, You absolutely should be meditating. But if you're also realizing that there's friction when you meditate and distraction, some observers, like the Sufi Realities channel would say, that's the nafs, the ego, trying to distract you. I'm willing to do some guided meditations for you on Substack for free if there is enough positive energy, maybe even a live stream this upcoming eclipse, maybe even demonstrating a live painting of a sacred symbol like the solar cross, which we talked about in previous videos, and bring into life a spirit of protection for those of us that are following God's law, that are opposed to the rise of Satan's army and the Antichrist. Because I want you to believe in safety, the safety of your soul, no matter what happens, even if your city is taken out in a blink of an eye. Because some of us are in range of Russia's targets. Okay, that's the truth. So I can't help but talk a little bit about that stuff. So we talked about this. And so you do recognize then there are people that discuss meditation and life coaching and solar flares that don't speak the most truthful about what we could be facing in America. And a lot of the people that talk a little bit more truthful about what we could be facing in America with the prepping and whatnot and the politics, they're not always the most spiritual, and they get a little bit tribal. Okay. So understand Vipassana. My old friend Gunnar, his sister, and I, we all went to Vipassana, located in rural Washington, north of Portland, Oregon. And it's a simple process. I've talked about it many times. I'll talk about it again, of observing your breath as it is without the deep breathing. I'm saying do that, but also take time to then also just observe your breath and be equanimous and non-reactive to the desire to itch. Just observe your breath and the body sensations and do a body scan from head to toe, toe to head. I don't see the lotus position as necessary, but something that people should attempt to do for at least minutes at a time, which is what we'll do now. Okay, so this part will be the remainder, because I know that I'm good for about 20 minutes. So it is about taking a deep breath and then connecting, I guess, the root chakra to the earth for a period of time in which you can do it. And when I went to Vipassana in 2002, during Solar Maxima, mind you, I had a hard time sitting, and there were some elderly meditators that were there that had chairs brought out for them. So I know that I talk fast and I have kind of an electrifying energy, but I don't see it as contrary to spirituality. I've been called by Ryan McPherson an energizer, and I have been called that by other people. And even if I may call some people energy vampires, which some are, it is our nature to absorb energy and to learn. And I'm trying to absorb certain spiritual teachings that will allow me to become more tolerant to people that don't agree with me, and in some cases hate me, without realizing that they're doing it by just being human and having what I call the prototype personality, which is basically being average. Because I think mass consciousness isn't really enlightened, but the opposite. But a lot of conspiracy folks will think that about themselves, and right-wingers and left-wingers and Portlanders, where I'm from, this type of we have everything figured out and it's the president that's wrong, the nation that's wrong, this country that's wrong, but we're so great. There's nothing in my life experience that's led me to any pro-tribalistic argument of supremacy for any group. So basically, it's because of the illusions of separation that your world is in such ignorance. Everybody involved in the mental health field should be aware of the influence of the sun and the moon and the eclipses. And they should be teaching people basic meditation techniques. So they range from deep breathing to grounding to the center of the earth. And that goes from sitting down to be grounded right now outside, to standing up without socks on the earth, consciously taking in energy from the sun, using the body as a conduit and down to the earth and back up, but also certain Qigong movements that you can find online. And this is just, you don't even have to think about martial arts. This is obviously a defensive parry or circular motion Aikido, Kung Fu style of Krav Maga maybe, but not really, but sometimes. Just the whole flexible circular movement looks a little Krav Maga-ish. And again, not a martial arts expert in this lifetime. Definitely not. But definitely at this point, being 44, I feel totally confident telling you that I believe that combining different physical exercises, mental exercises, and meditations pack a powerful punch during this time period. Pulling out from the programming, cutting cords. So we talked about meditations. Do you know about cutting cords? Visualizing yourself with a flaming sword holding in your hand, creating it in your mind's eye, and then cutting those cords that your chakras extending to other people on the planet. Okay, so if you're a public figure, you got to cut cords. If you're on Facebook and you're dealing with arguments and people and their energy, you got to cut cords there too. If you're dealing with the public eye, you're working in a bar, if you're dealing with drugs and alcohol and sex and people like that, you have to cut cords there. As I told you, through these heterosexual sexual experiences that I've had in the past, like in my past apartment in Portland, I opened up myself to evil spirits before I began to let people like Gunnar come in to influence me to harm myself. You see, so I opened up the door by not being on the spiritual path because I wasn't as aware at that age. The people in my life were not there to put me on the spiritual path. There was the A-man, but he and I, neither of I think that he was a spiritual guru or anything. Many times he would say, with regards to certain things and behaviors, I have no moral qualm against XYZ. And in many cases, I'm hearing what he's saying, but in my life and my experience, I do have a moral qualm with XYZ. That would include, things relating to the sex industry. At least now, that's where I'm at. Where in the past, I wasn't. I was a little bit more, you would call, liberal with regards to that. Now, knowing what I know about spiritual warfare, I do have some moral qualms with certain promiscuous activity in which no love is involved, in which the person you're with may be with multiple partners and basically a conduit for these evil spirits that some people don't even want to believe exists. So meditation also includes visualizing a rose that you create out in front of you, that in your mind's eye you visualize yourself taking that rose and sticking it inside your mind, a sticky rose that's magnetic and pulling other people's energy and thoughts, judgments, fears, things of that nature, pulling all of that out of your head, and then throwing out that rose in front of you 10 feet, hitting some sort of a video game style red button, and blowing up that rose repeatedly, blowing up that rose, creating new roses in your mind's eye. Okay, bringing them in of different colors and sizes, and then throwing them out, discarding them, and then hitting that video game button, and then visualizing it blowing up. Okay, so in Leon's meditation, I don't advise you take medication, deal with the solar flares, unless you seriously are convinced that it's helping you. These statements that I make are not approved by the FDA. These statements that I make are not approved by suspicious observers. These statements that I make, Coast to Coast is willing to let their audience hear, which is a sign of consciousness in a world that, in my eyes, has become very dark. The forces become dark, Luke, and so have many people. But there are times in which opportunities arrive to share information with people. Okay, so another exercise for spiritual protection and psychic self-defense: eclipses, new moons, full moons, planetary flybys, planetary alignments, solar flares, geomagnetic storms, magnetic storms caused by other things other than the sun. All that in a bag of chips, maybe even, electronic harassment. All that and more. You want to know how to put up a shield and visualize a mirror around you, sending the energy back to either the sender or the server. See how I did that? See how I did that? Back to the server, being that in some cases, the hate you're feeling may not even be human. Oftentimes when I upload on the internet, I just get an icky feeling. I did actually quite a bit, had a very icky feeling when I got back on my original YouTube channel. There was a period during the solar minimum where it was like, no. So listen, understand, okay? yeah, we'll talk about tapping in a minute. Tapping. I see that when the sun is active, we are active, but so are other entities. So you will see some people hijacked because the soul voltage that they're at, their inability to control themselves. Then other people, they'll consciously take in that energy, as I tell you, you're affected by the solar flares whether you know it or not. Okay, so if you want to really mediate it, you take it in and you balance out those chakras. What other people are saying about removing the chakras, I do not endorse, and people have complained about a certain individual that I interviewed years ago who literally takes money from people to, quote, remove chakras. However, that's done. Just wow. The different winds, the wind is blowing. The winds have a magnetism to them. So keep in mind, people in different latitudes and regions are going to be feeling different things. Learning how to mix your internal energy with self-defense strikes and stepping from, just focusing on, a strike. The same hand, a strike to an underhand, knife hand, to a ridge hand, an eagle claw or a tiger claw or a finger jab, vertical jab, horizontal, whipping jab, at least described in the Bruce Lee books, one that is a straight vertical that whips. So instead of a straight, a whip. Then there's just a cross and an over, and then different ways that you can jab. Plus, right, striking in different angles. That's a whole other video. That's enough on that. So explosive physical use of your body through cycling, jogging, striking, shadow boxing, lifting weights in conjunction with reading, writing, exercise, all very positive. So the other thing that you can add inside for those of you that are still dealing with turbulent winter and will be watching this in the winter is that some people have reported that they feel really helped by these pads that you can find on Amazon. There's different brands of different quality, and some people give you instructions in the Amazon review section on how to get the tools to do a test to see if you bought a quality product that works or one is bunk or one that is bunk. There are also documentaries on YouTube that you can watch called Earthing or Grounding that talk about people even grounding or earthing their tiny home and their sleeping bed. It's the idea of, I have not done it yet, but it's the idea of getting special sheets or blankets that are grounded, and it's connected to a grounding rod that in some cases, at least the pads, goes into the socket or a surge protector, or in some cases goes outside the house entirely. Not an expert on it, don't understand anything about it. By the way, I will be giving over free PDFs. I have given away some PDFs to people that haven't even asked me for it. It would be good to get some feedback on the Burl Payne PDF on the spin force. Search for the truth if you want to take a look at that, being that you're mechanically minded. Maybe you can wrap your minds around that. And if you want to make a video about that, that would be great. No pressure whatsoever. It would be good to see if people want to tackle the Burl Payne, I'll call it the Burl Payne Kool-Aid Challenge, being that I am the one. Not going to stop the bullets here, but being that I am the one. Folks, I am the one who's discussing Burl Payne on the internet. If you know other people, that's great. Send me their links. I'll listen to what they have to say. Awesome. It's good to hear. But until that happens, I'm the one discussing Burl Payne. Burl Payne claims that he knows how to measure the biofield around the human body through a device he created made out of pyramids and magnets. It's all in his book, available on Amazon. You can consult me for free because, I don't know that his family is carrying on his work, so I don't know that they're, I think Burl Payne would want you to know about all this. And if anybody out there is sitting on the Burl Payne collection of everything that he wrote and everything that he did, same thing with Alexander Chizevsky, Edward Dewey, Robert Wheeler, and apparently there's another solar researcher by the name of Adam something from 1990 who wrote about solar maximum. And so then there's Velikovsky. Although he did not specifically, although he may have written about the sunspots, his whole thing, I guess, was that our world has been in some sort of a cataclysm in the past, and we carry forth a trauma within us because of this cataclysm. And I feel it, and I've been in places where these cataclysms, I feel in my heart, have been. Ghost Springs, Colorado, and Chimney Rock is one of those places. So in other videos, we'll talk about the potential power of the collective, meditating at the same time using Glastonbury tour-like locations for the greater good, using Christ and God as our power source. But what I want to tell you is I don't think that we are limited to what Dion Fortune looked at, which is Tour, which is Glastonbury, the place where Christ allegedly visited. It relates to the Holy Grail in England. The whole story about that. Magical Battle of Britain. Check out the PDF. Ask me for a copy. Solar Storm 330 at proton.me. I actually told people too, and I think maybe one did. So right now I have a very small audience, and I'm fine with that because, as Maurice Cotterell suggests, by people having 12 different personalities of zodiac, people are going to be really repelled by people with opposite water signs or different water signs or signs, like if they're fire or they're earth. And so sometimes it's not always a negative thing for people to have nothing to do with certain people. It's not always an insult. Same thing with why I don't watch certain content creators, which I find to be fine in their own world, with their astrology channels and their conspiracy channels. Just because I may not watch them doesn't mean that there's something inherently wrong with them. If I unsubscribe or determine that their content is not something that is going to directly benefit me. You have to be at a certain level to understand certain bits of information. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. Okay? So we'll make this video 30 minutes. Okay? Because I've already given you several different meditations. Now, grounding on a deeper level means bringing up the earth energy through your legs, through your ground chakra, back down to the earth, and also visualizing the energy coming in through the crown chakra, through the chakras. It's described different ways online. This isn't the time for the guided meditation, but again, this is a yoga posture that is about opening up the heart with one palm open and the other palm closed. Okay, so this by itself is one meditation to do to practice opening up the heart. Okay, we already talked about this, visualizing a shield and also a mirror. Okay, again, a mirror reflecting back negative energy to the individuals and the sender. This is important during times in which we could be dealing with attacks that are non-human. We could actually, you ever see that thing like in Hollywood where it's like they tap in on one shoulder and a person looks this way? We might think that certain attacks, I've heard this from some audience members that are conscious enough, spiritual enough to be aware of the voice in the head attack on them, and that it's spiritual. Not positive, but that it comes from the non-physical realm, not government, archonic, demonic jinn. So there are people that are conscious enough to realize that their thoughts are not their own when certain stuff comes in, affects their pineal gland. It'll be like, this person's bad, this person's evil. And it's about the implanting of thoughts. There's so many people that are about reject the vaccine, and that's great, but have they rejected certain thought forms that they don't even suspect? Many haven't, and are basically remote control human beings. And those human beings are difficult to educate and teach. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been teaching certain spiritual concepts that certain other people out there that I don't need to name will never teach in 1 million years. And I'm proud of that. That's why they'll recognize my work in 50 years, 100 years, maybe even 200 to 300 if we went around then. But I'm not convinced we will be. I'm not convinced we will be. We may be. I'm not convinced, though, we will be. But what I am convinced of is that we're going to be around for a while to see the decay of our society. And so you're either going to learn to protect yourself spiritually through meditation, prayer, or you could become hijacked. So what do I mean when I said to a Muslim a month ago, well, you pray 5 times a day, I pray 20. It's the idea of constantly being a state of servitude and not just being like ritualistic. Okay? And I believe that you can serve Christ without going to church. And I do believe that many mainstream churches are preaching a do as thou wilt dogma, because they're saying just believe that Christ is the way, but don't place emphasis on the teachings of Christ and that your sins will follow you. Just place this emphasis on your sins basically like being like lifted from you through this type of like ritual. And that's like some magical stuff as they incorporate a cross which came before Christ, without even acknowledging like the solar gnosis, and then stepping on that, and anybody looking at the solar gnosis as a sun worshiper or sun sacrifice. That's the mind control aspect, sorry to tell you, of some of your own religions, and I'm here to pop that bubble. Pop, pop, pop. a pop. I am a bubble popper. At the same time that I pop those bubbles, I teach you how to create your own bubble of protection around you. So let's wrap things up. What have we talked about here today? Have you learned how to shield yourself? Okay, talked about the rose in the head, clearing that out, grounding, bringing a shield around your body, going out, getting sun, going back inside, writing, reading, exercise, training hard, high rep, heavy weight, low rep, martial arts, with people, without people, mediate the effects of the solar cycle. Okay. It is believed by the Sufi realities guy that we have basically a light, a mini sun within our heart, and that Shaitan, or the evil one, and the darkness of this world wants to basically blow out our light. So in addition to visualizing a shield, visualize that light in your heart. That is like what we would think to be an eternal flame, a flame that can't be blown out. Flame that has compassion for humanity, a flame that has a love, a flame that has a light, a flame that knows the truth, a flame that has dedicated its soul to the Creator, a flame that is dedicated also to helping the soul group evolve. It's the idea that we are connected karmically also to the future and past generations. So this is why I talk about the women of 2075, my dedication, using my internal sacred masculine and feminine attributes as a heterosexual male in a complicated world. I know that the vast majority of humanity at present, due to algorithms and mind control, doesn't support the message that I'm presenting. And humanity collectively receives a failing grade from me, and that failing grade is a giant F. It's written in blood, but as the Billy Joel song says, we didn't start the fire. I didn't start the fire. It's not my blood. It's not your blood. I didn't cause the blood. But it is a blood that is there. It is a genocide that is there. And it's not just the fault of some aliens or some, Trumpers or Antifa or the left or Biden or China or Russia. Okay? Collectively, mankind has allowed these things to take place and has had every opportunity in the world in the last couple of years to help me, help others, start websites, to carry forth the work of Burl Payne instead of let his work go down the memory hole. Where are his fans from the 80s? I did defend the baby boomers in the past, but sometimes I want to walk back some of those statements and take the gloves off. I'm just trying to be nice to the old timers that are in their last 10 years of life, likely, as the solar cycle does have a way of creating heart attacks and strokes. Some of you may not be alive in 2 years' time from the effect of the sun. If you're in your and you have issues from diet, health, certain drug abuse, is that you may not know actually affected your heart in an adverse manner. Those of you that are trusting in Big Pharma that take certain drugs that have been prescribed to you by doctors that really don't like you, don't care about the effects of some of these drugs, SSRIs, as more of you have become stressed from the solar flares in recent years and suffering from the insomnia. Instead of changing your diet, getting the right exercise, involving yourself in meditation and spirit to also push out those entities, you have been mind controlled in some cases to take really bad drugs. So in some cases, if you have not yet detoxed from the harmful things that are creating the toxicity to begin with, you want to do that. And just relocating somewhere else into the country or to a nicer city is not going to fix your problems with spiritual warfare and parasite issues. There are sometimes localized hauntings that exist only in homes, so in some cases, sure. But a lot of people, they're dealing with something greater. And unless you're willing to get away from the internet and your smartphone, you are always going to be dealing with a certain level of interference. What I'm trying to do is create a yin-yang balance, because unless I get online and show you my light, the evil of this world makes me ill. I have no other option. In order for me to evolve in this world, I have to continue to be dedicated to helping you evolve in this world. Okay? And so with that, we're going to bring this to a close. I recommend that you just start meditating wherever you are in the city for a few moments at a time and visualizing yourself being grounded and sane and clear-headed, regardless of the energy frequencies around you. Practice at the grocery store, practice at the mall. See yourself as also a beacon of consciousness and light that is capable of waking up your community by simply spreading your light by being in their presence and being of a certain frequency. It is kind of like using sage, burning sage, and I've done this before in my travels, even in LA or San Diego. Burning sage and like some random street girl, I think I might even caught this on video. She's like, "Oh my God, that is so awesome," and then getting a little too close to me. But anyways, you can have a positive impact on your reality, but you have to be shielded when you do that, because there are forces in this world, and some, like the Sufi Realities channel, see there's more of them than us as far as evil spirits. And so many people may not know why they suffer, why they deal with blowback, when they're basically sparking a light, a powerful light, in a room or a region or an area that's overtaken with wickedness. So it's one of the positive ways you can look at relocation, if you do have to relocate somewhere to where you or I perceive it as being low vibrational, we can look at it in a positive way and see ourselves as contributing to the wake-up call. That's not narcissistic, that's your path. Jesus says, "I can do many things, you can do more." I want you to think about this in your final minutes. And you can also go on next door in your community and encourage people to pray at the same time, at the same hour, to synchronize over a symbol. So if you have a dominant Christian, if you have a dominant Muslim, if you have a dominant New Age, coexist, merge everything together in one, whatever, Portland crowd. Using the archetypal images of that location, there's power in consciousness. So I'm here to tell you, like a big brother, if you want to call me a big sister, I think that's awkward, but whatever. You need to wrap your mind around this. Either we're going to harness the power of our own mind and consciousness, or it's going to be turned against us and weaponized. So the power of the sun is also the power of spirit, because the solar energy itself, the electromagnetic energy from nature itself, is a God force. And so instead of let this abrupt force that sometimes comes in strong with these X-class solar flares, or as I hypothesized in an earlier video, futuristic Z-class solar flares that are just unmeasurable, off the charts, that are like God's knockout blow to our current grid. We as human beings, ultimately, I believe, were designed to be able to handle this energy that's coming in. So hopefully the information that I've given you so far will enlighten you to the next level and will help you free yourself.